Donald Trump on Thursday announced a 35% tariff on imports from Canada next month, and he's planned to impose blanket tariffs of 15 to 20% on most other trade partners. In a letter released on his social media platform, Trump told Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney that the new rate would go into effect from August 1 and would go up if Canada retaliated. The new U.S. tariff will apply to Canadian imports. President Trump said it was a response to Canadian retaliation and persistent trade barriers. In a letter released on Thursday evening, he accused Canada of failing to cooperate on major issues, especially the flow of fentanyl into the United States. President Trump linked Canada's role in the fentanyl trafficking to new tariffs, and he also warned of further duties if Ottawa retaliates. Now, Canada remains the U.S.'s second biggest trading partner and also the top buyer of American exports. The U.S. has notified 22 nations of updated tariffs, including a 50% rate on Brazilian imports. Well, responding to the new tariff announcements from the United States, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said that his government will continue to defend Canadian workers and businesses in their negotiations with the United States as they work towards that deadline. In a social media post, Carney said that Canada is standing firm in trade talks with the U.S. and will keep defending its workers ahead of the August 1 deadline. He highlighted Canada's efforts to fight fentanyl and its commitment to working with the U.S. to protect communities. Carney also noted that progress is taking place in unifying the Canadian economy, launching major national projects, as well as expanding global trade ties. The Brazilian President, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, is rallying behind business leaders. This is to back his government. He's asking them to back his government if talks with the United States administration fails. Now, Lula has called the way the tariffs were announced disrespectful after U.S. imposed 50% tariffs on imports from Brazil effective August 1. Further, Lula said, he could have called Brazil to tell about the measures he was going to take. He didn't even send a letter. We didn't receive a letter. He posted on his website a complete lack of respect, which is typical of his behavior towards everyone. And I'm not obligated to accept this disrespectful behavior between heads of state. Well, further, Lula also said that he was working to unite exporters of orange juice, steel, and aerospace to negotiate and find a resolution. Brazil produces nearly half of the world's Arabica coffee and is by far the world's largest orange juice producer, accounting for about 80% of global exports. I myself will seek new markets for Brazilian products.
Now, if you add all the indirect imports coming in from, let's say, China via Vietnam or China via Mexico, maybe we could get to a figure of 18% or so. Now, 18% reliance on imports is not small. And the biggest problem is going to be for the US going to be effect on consumer goods. Not so much capital goods, but the consumer goods almost entirely imported. Most foodstuffs, you already mentioned, coffee and orange juice. In addition, if they push Canada to a corner, then Canada will have to be forced to retaliate, and that's not going to be good for either Canada or US. So I do believe it's giving a little window for Canada to
right.
Start.
So, Professor Prant, why did the Trump ultimatum to work out trade deals fail? Was that 90-day time frame? You know, I mean, I'm not talking only about Canada, but with the rest of the world as well. Is that enough for a tough negotiation? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sorry, he was giving too short a notice. You see, for example, suppose he tells Canada, I'm going to fix these tariffs. Now, Canada doesn't trade only with US, they trade with others too. They want to know what he's doing in other countries. For example, let's take a hypothetical example. Suppose today India decided that we will not do a trade deal. Let the US do what it wants. So according to the reciprocal tariffs, we'll be hit by 26% tariff, correct? Now, that is still lower than what the other countries are facing. So every country is worrying not only about US, but about what is their relative price position vis-a-vis other countries. So India would still be beneficial, because the tariffs already announced on countries like Vietnam, etc., are much higher. So we would still have a relative price advantage. That does not mean demand will not fall because prices in the US will rise, but at least we have a relative price advantage in the US market. So everyone's waiting to see what is the final deal with the others. And that's how used to do in the WTO. Everyone came at one time and said, okay, this is your tariff, this is your tariff, this is your tariff. After 10 days of discussion, it was clear which tariff is applied to who, and all tariffs being MFN, everyone has the same tariff. So it was a one way of settling the whole issue at one place. But Mr. Trump has gone back to the old US policy of actually deciding that I'm going to decide what the tariff should be. I'm going to decide what multilateral response should be. So it's difficult for any country to say, okay, we agree, because we don't
Yes.
know what he's going to agree with the other country. And so
Okay.
that's the reason why things are being so difficult. It's difficult to do bilateral tariffs and multilateral tariffs at the same time. But
So,
trade is determined by multilateral tariffs, not bilateral tariffs.
sure.
That's
Okay. But Professor Pant, now to what extent will the imposition of these tariffs affect the local governments? Do you see them being tested, for either submitting to the US or standing up to the US pressure?
See, I don't think, frankly, domestically, people really go in for these things, even the US. I think it's going to depend on how much the price tariffs affect the domestic prices. So we'll have to wait to see. Right now, nothing's going to happen because most countries and importers in the US and others have done preemptive imports. Import a whole lot of stuff. You've seen trade balance of India, zooming in the last couple of months. Everyone does preemptive purchase from the US, right? Or the US importers are purchasing preemptively before the tariffs come to face. We will not know, frankly, till the end of the year.
Okay.
Because I believe he's going to take August and he will move August a bit too, and then before the negotiation, he's sort of doing negotiations. The problem seems to be that we don't know what is his discussion. Is it only tariffs or the non-tariff issues involved? For example,
Okay.
in the case of Brazil, he's obviously at some point in time going to be very anti anyone who's negotiating Brazil because you have already shown on your TV that Silva has I've got my retaliation ready.
All right.
Countries who are announcing that we are ready to retaliate. He's going to make sure because a lot of this is personal. It's not really political. So at the
Okay.
moment it's difficult to say. Let me be very clear. If the tariff announcement that he says and the retaliation all happen, and that will be different from his previous term, 2016, certainly you will see prices going up globally because every
Okay.
country's imports will fall. If every country's imports fall, because everyone retaliating is everyone else, total global trade will fall, in which case total global individual country inflation will go up. And then you'll see the corrections happening in the case of exchanges. Where I think Mr. Trump is not very clear, or his economy is not clear, is the tariffs are a first off effect.
Okay.
Secondary effects, unlike 1930s, are felt through exchange rate changes. So you will see the exchange rates adjusting to what the tariffs are not doing.
Fine. So,
So the exchange rate changes are going to happen the rest of the year because they take time. And that no country has any impact on. That's a free market. So once we know what the final tariffs are going to be, bilaterally and therefore also unilaterally, then exchange rates and markets will respond and then only we know. But certainly there will be an impact.
okay, but in pure business terms, Professor Pant, and looking at the big picture which you've explained, will these measures help the U.S. economy, or are they going to lead to global trade realignment?
No, there will be a major global trade realignment if it goes through. And I'm still saying that I don't think his methods are with. It's not madness without any method. There is a method to what he's doing, and he's trying to fix it so that production starts in the U.S. I believe countries who show that we're going to invest something, they do something, will find most of these measures taken back. And that's what my belief is. I don't think he wants inflation. Have you noticed even the immigration, illegal immigrants, he withdrew when he found it was affecting businesses like shops and farms in the south, which is constituency. So a lot of it is political. It's not entirely economic. So I believe economics will matter. But will the world be affected? Yes. For the next 4 or 5 months, certainly there's global untrade. No producer would want to buy or sell anything without knowing what is the price I'm going to contract. And that's going to affect every country. It's going to affect us. It's going to affect the US, it's going to affect Canada, everyone.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Manoj Pant, eminent economist, expert on international trade. Thank you for being with us.